What's going on, gamers? How's everyone doing? Well, I'm doing okay. Um, Here we go again with Xbox flip-flopping. I'm going to prove it here. And I'm also going to prove that what I said about exclusives is also true, how it doesn't really mean anything. And how Matthew Ball, who they just hired, made it quite clear that it's not about Xbox hardware worldwide, and that they don't really care about focusing on it like that, and that you should just play on PC or get it on PlayStation 5, if anything. It's crazy that they're not trying to promote the hardware again. You want to know why? Because they already know that it's done in a sense. Are we ready for this? Become a member if you want. Leave a tip down below. Would appreciate that. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that hype button. I would appreciate that as well. So here we go. Exorcist has a post here. And I'm going to have to do another video on something else going on here. This is all interesting here. They're finally admitting it. Let me zoom in again for you guys. Remember, this is what they're saying. They're finally admitting it, and I don't like it one bit. Matthew Ball on Game Business talked about the current Xbox markets and makes it pretty clear, or pretty damn clear, he had to say that, for those of us who aren't from USA or UK. Think about what he just said. For those of us who aren't from the United States of America or the United Kingdom. Question: when shifting to console exclusives, Gears of War and Clockwork Revolution should expect to sell fewer games. Like you're gonna lose players because it's going exclusive. He's gonna explain why. And it's like when you say this type of stuff, it's like, yeah, of course this is obvious, but it's a decision that you want to make that's not gonna really be for your hardware. And I'm gonna prove that, but there's a different reason why they're doing this. And this is especially true in places like Europe and Japan, where Xbox has a relatively small presence. So he's basically admitting that Xbox is pretty much only going to sell hardware and copies in America, mostly. Matthew Ball: in each and every one of those markets, PC tends to be the most popular gaming platform. You know what's so funny about this is seeing the install base of Nintendo and seeing the install base of Sony, because Sony is massive in Europe, and they always have been. And he wants to talk about PC, where it's like, but that's just having a PC, but that's not for PC gaming. A lot of people have PCs, but a PC is not a gaming platform, but you can game on it. PlayStation is a gaming platform. Nintendo is a gaming platform. He's kind of missing a point here by saying that, because it's trying to make an excuse of why Xbox has failed in Europe, or Xbox was never relevant in Japan. Even PlayStation can't be relevant in Japan. Nintendo is. But there's reasons why. It's not because you couldn't do it. It's because of the way things work there and the choices that you made. At least for the titles we're talking about. So he's talking about Gears and Clockwork. Clockwork in general does not look like it's going to be anything to blow up. If it does, then I will be surprised, right? But he's basically talking about Xbox as a platform has a relatively small presence there. But back in the days, Gears did good in Europe. Windows is already where the world plays, what he says. Though PlayStation and Nintendo have the biggest gaming communities. It's only gaming. You know what I mean? Definitely Nintendo, you turn it on, it's straight gaming. And that's a very important slogan for the company. He's making it aware to you. Windows is important here in these markets, not Xbox hardware. We strongly encourage all players who want to play those titles to do so in those markets. He basically just told you you don't need an Xbox. Here it is again. Guys, this is not the first time I've seen that. The only reason I know that I'm not going to be affected by this, because that's when I was actually trying to push for the Series X to actually be like the 360 generation. The only reason I know I'm not going to get upset by this is because I already realize why he's saying this. This is the time to kind of say it, compare differently to where Phil Spencer and them were leading, and they said, that's the worst time to do it. You're still trying to compete. Now he's basically just saying, oh, I already know this hardware is dead here, and it doesn't stand a chance. And we're not going to subsidize. We're not focusing on getting more components to mass feed Xbox hardware. And we're not going to drop the price for you. We're focusing on AI, and I already know the game. So I'm just going to be straight up with you. We strongly encourage all players who want to play those titles to do so in those markets. He's basically telling you, play on Windows. I swear it blows my mind that they're strongly encouraging players in Europe and Japan to play games like Gears or Clockwork on PC. I'm totally floored. This guy came out and said it. You see, this is the same thing again. They're telling you Xbox consoles are dead. Do not think that Helix is going to be anything. This whole time, AGN has been trying to tell you this. And here it is again. The truth is coming in front of your face. And then saying we're going to be number one over Nintendo and PlayStation. How? You're basically talking about you need to get on a Windows platform on Steam and play those games on Steam. or Xbox Game Pass on PC. It's not about selling Xbox consoles, and it never has been. I told you that if you got that sign with Forza Horizon 6 launching, and they didn't subsidize last market. Sorry, not last, but they didn't subsidize last holidays. Remember when Sony gave you that $650 deal for the PS5 Pro? And the PS5 digital and the Fortnite bundles? Even Nintendo was giving deals on their first year putting their console on the market. And they were subsidizing too. They were. Even the $50 increase is a subsidizing standpoint. Think about that. That $50 increase to the Switch 2 is a subsidizing standpoint. They're not getting back what they really want, but they know they can't afford to do that anymore. That's why I tell you, Nintendo is taking a hit, and they don't have nowhere near as money as Microsoft. Sony doesn't have nowhere near as much money as Microsoft either. And once again, Microsoft is saying, we strongly, guys, I didn't say, you know what, if you want to play on PC, I understand, but I think you guys should get the Xbox console. Like, they're not even trying to promote it. He specifically is just telling you, we strongly encourage all players who want to play those titles to do so in those markets. This is also telling you that I will never go true exclusive. I don't have it in me. We don't have it. We can't do it. Everything AGN has been telling you is now being put here right in front of your face. Again. And he's saying, go to Steam. Please buy my game on Steam. Please play Game Pass on PC. Get ready because we need the PC market. It's not about selling Xbox hardware consoles. Xbox hardware is dead. You want to argue with me over this? Really? He said it right here. He says, I'm totally floored. Jay says, man, there are no Xbox consoles to sell, to be honest. And you also have to say to buy them on PC. Because they're focusing on AI. The AI feed that is a problem on the market, Microsoft is a major part of this. They don't care about Xbox hardware. Why would they, right? I told you this is not a gaming company. PlayStation is a part of Sony, and Sony is a huge gaming company. Nintendo is the biggest gaming company because it's all 100% gaming. They're all or nothing. You see? Nintendo goes multi-platform. Today Nintendo is finished. I remember that. That's funny because, like I say, it's all or nothing in my world. Microsoft does not care about consoles. They've been letting you know that for the longest. It was never about Xbox hardware. Phil Spencer wanted to sell consoles, but then he realized that it's Microsoft Corporation now, not Xbox Game Studios or Xbox. Man, there are no Xbox consoles to sell because they're not going to focus on mass manufacturing like that. They don't even want to get the hardware ready for GTA because they know that AI is still going to make them way more money than GTA would make them. Because Xbox is not 60% of Microsoft or 90 to 100% like Nintendo is. You see what I mean? When you look at the Nintendo Switch, that is the majority of the Nintendo company. Gaming is pretty much the majority of Nintendo. But now Nintendo has branched out to make movies now. They make a lot of movies now. You see them doing that. They have their theme parks around the world. But still, Nintendo is the foundation gaming of Nintendo. Like Sony said, PlayStation is now 60% of our company. Xbox is not even 10% of Microsoft. They had to monopolize to get Activision to probably make it seem like now this is a percentage of how much money we can make from the Xbox division in the long term. But do you know how much they told you they lost yesterday? And they said that was before the Activision deal. How much did Microsoft really lose, though? If you think about that 70 billion plus that 20 billion. Plus 300 million on Game Pass for putting Black Ops 7 there. 250 million fine. And they told you about another 300 million yesterday. Smart delivery paying too. Guys, I'm telling you, it's a complete mess. But they're trying to give you some little bit of hope. But it's really bad. That's why I said you can't even outsell the Switch 1. You ain't going to even get that type of supply. So you already got the idea about Xbox hardware sales and install base and thinking that you're going to go back fully exclusive. Like you're going to be selling exclusives on Xbox for the base to be conditioned to get used to day one on Game Pass. That's why that has to happen. Because they need as much community as possible if they're not going to have PlayStation for games like Gears. But it's going to be a tough world because guess what? It's going to fall off real quick in Europe. It's going to fall off. Japan's not going to even care. You're only going to have the USA community for Gears. But how many people are jumping ship on games consistently in the USA now? You know how many free-to-play games constantly come out? You know how many games are coming out in September? You know how many games are coming out in October and August? How are they going to be able to catch up on all those games too? It's going to be so stacked. People are going to have so many games to play. If you got a Switch 2, a PlayStation, and a PC, and an Xbox. You think it's just going to be Gears? Like it's the 360 days where you're lining up in a Blockbuster line and this is the only game I'm going to wake up playing? Man, I'm telling you, that stuff is over with. That's why it's not that big of a deal to Sony. Think about it. I'm telling you, remember what I said. This guy says, it's fine to smooth over any inconsistencies in their statements. The reality is that the question doesn't mention that this is due to a lack of stock or a component crisis, nor does it even suggest that it should be attributed to that. It's all three, exactly. Not only are the components so high, they don't want to jack the price up again, and they don't want to focus on stock and pay for those components. They'd rather feed that to the AI, and they're not going to tell you to get the Xbox hardware. He just told you to play on PC in Europe and in Japan. Never sold in Japan anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. Even Sony putting the price down 150 whatever in Japan did not help that much against Switch 2 because they're a different breed. They look at things differently. Solid Evolution says they can't build Xbox consoles and sell them in the USA because of the RAM crisis. They don't want to subsidize. That's why. And they don't care. The question is clear and does not suggest that this is due to a lack of stock or component shortage. No, it's also, you don't have to get an Xbox. You can play it on PlayStation. You can play it on PC. Not a question. It's pretty obvious. Stando says, do you think Xbox should fully become a PC and stop with the halfway measures? They're not good at distributing and selling hardware anyways. Well, I hope that never happens because the brand's identity gets diluted. It also doesn't seem like the Xbox store on PC is doing all that well at competing with Steam, to be honest. No, Steam has that shit monopolized and just down. You ain't moving the ship to Steam like that. It's going to be tough. That's why I was trying to tell you, how are you going to dominate PlayStation and Nintendo, but you need PlayStation and Nintendo to even be a dominant publisher and Steam. You ain't dominating nobody. You need them to stay successful. PS6 has to be successful. It's a publishing market that Microsoft needs to not fall. Imagine if that happened. That's why I tell some of these people, oh, PlayStation is this. I said, you are a moron if you want PlayStation to fall. Xbox is done then. Its publishing dies. Third-party developers get hurt massively. You don't ever want that to happen. And you need Nintendo to make up for the failureship of third-party support that Xbox had before. And even then, it's going to be bigger than that. Because they got their install base. No matter what, like when I was telling people before, when they were grifting against the Switch 2 last year around this time, or actually before that, it was in March and April and February. I said, do you know how much they're going to help the gaming industry and how much they're going to help Japan grow and how important the Japanese developers are to the gaming industry and how they've always been the best? And how all these third-party developers are going to be going over there and getting support to be able to fund and keep their communities alive and make other IPs and make sequels. You have to see how it works from a community perspective. How everybody benefits, regardless of whatever platform you want to choose. If you want to stay and be infantile and immature about it, see how the gaming industry still needs to grow. Look at the fall off of Xbox, but still look at the health of the gaming community because of the Switch 2, selling 23 million consoles in 1 year. Insane numbers in this market where they had to jack the price up and how this market was just insane. I want you to think about that. And that probably before the end of this year, the Switch 2 will possibly be close to 40 million sold. Or like 35, 36 million. They're going to pass up the Xbox Series console sales in a year and a half. Or maybe a little bit after. I want you to think about that. How important that type of stuff is. Now, Microsoft is making it quite clear after all the flip-flopping, after the showcase, and they do the 1,000 layoffs. 1,000 layoffs. And then they come out and they tell you again, you don't need an Xbox console. Boy, I tell you, this company, man. See, I told you there's no consistency to grow everything in all angles. It's this little stuff that they want to play. And then you wonder, then why did you give me hope as an Xbox console player about exclusives? That's not what that was about. It was with PC and not with PlayStation, just for that game and those two games. It's not about hardware. That's why I was telling you, this is not about selling more Xbox consoles. Now you're understanding the game more. But once again, is this anything new? Adrian has been doing this since he's been starting up this channel, covering all these different topics. And I tell you, be careful who you listen to because they don't know what they're talking about. This guy says, my question is, won't they make an effort to recover those markets? I believe with a good brand value and marketing, they can. They do. They hurt their hardware so much. People don't want to buy an Xbox and they don't trust them. There's no consistency. I get the feeling with these statements, they practically have no hope of improving Xbox's situation in Europe. And in Japan, you stand no chance. What do you have left? Just USA? Okay, USA? That's not enough because you didn't even subsidize in your own hometown in the holidays. You got no closing for the year either. Remember, they did that before stuff got this bad. They said it. Yeah, it was times 2 or times 3, and then yesterday now it's times 5. They don't want to get that many components. And it's funny because they moved their base out of China and tried to do the same strategy that Nintendo did before Sony figured it out in Vietnam and other places. And was going to tell you, now we want to be able to mass manufacture, but in order to do that, we're going to have to start over again. So not only did that happen, but you got to hit with all the component rising cost deductions as well. And Microsoft is not going to focus on Xbox hardware. They're going to focus on AI. You're insane if you think they're not. This is an AI company now and a data cloud center company and digital and streaming. They're not a hardware company. Sony is a hardware manufacturing company. They're really good with that. Nintendo's good with hardware manufacturing as well. Microsoft is not great with hardware manufacturing. They were actually not too bad in the 360 era. But after that, it fell off a cliff. This guy says, well, I don't know. I see it as logical. They know that on Xbox, it'll be played massively through Game Pass because you're not going to buy any games. People fought so that they wouldn't come out on PlayStation 5. Where they would have sold well with the European and Japanese dominance of the console. I see it as a normal that they ask people to buy the game wherever. Well, yeah, because you already know you're not going to buy games in Europe on Xbox. You're not going to buy anything in Japan. Forget about it. I need to advertise PC Game Pass because the Japanese are not going to get an Xbox console. So if they want to play a game, I need to put it on PC so I can get into the Japanese market. That's reasonable. But at least try to fight in Europe. They don't want to, though. It's a huge market. Europe is bigger than America. Well, normal. There are no Xbox consoles anywhere, and the PC is the top platform. No, PlayStation and Nintendo are the top platforms. Install base wise and gaming wise. PlayStation is the biggest third party in the world. Nintendo is the biggest first party. The gaming industry has always revolved around them. Steam has grown off of other people's games consistently and doing monopolizing and all that. Steam is a big platform now, but it doesn't stand on its own in its own world. It has to stand in Windows' world. You're not understanding. It's not an independent platform with hardware. You could never put Steam ahead of PlayStation and Nintendo because it does not grow the industry with hardware through install base. It needs somebody else's install base to grow in and a bunch of other people's games. They don't give games. They don't even come close. You're still not getting the game. No matter how much you want to play that game. PC is not the top platform. It's PlayStation and Nintendo. It always was and always will be. Now, PC in the future could have some type of growth, sure. But I'm just trying to get you guys to understand why it's that way. And why you can't compare them to them in totality like that. It doesn't even come close. So here we have it. It's all right there in front of you. I want you guys to let me know what you think about this. Leave a comment down below. Like, comment, subscribe as usual. Like I said, become a member if you want. Leave a tip. Would appreciate that. Guys, Xbox hardware is dead. Accept it. I've been telling you this. Later, keep on gaming no matter what platform you're on. Now you know the game again. Here it comes on multiple different sides. Different talking again. It's never a unified perspective. Asha gave you hope that hardware was going to be moving again, possibly, right? Nope, she told you something yesterday, and he came out and said it. But what was the point of giving Xbox fanboys, if you think about Xbox, you come from the console world, hope that exclusives are returning, you're going to sell and compete with PlayStation? Come on, man. Later.